Cheerios. Ah.
I was thinking the other day about burnouts, and my first burnout I was like 30 years old, and I had it, and I felt so bad because I felt like I was kind of incapable of doing my job. And I remember thinking that other people must have more work juice or something like that. And then it happened again while in Finland when I was looking for work. I remember burning up, and I thought that it was from all the hard work. And then it happened again. And the last time I got curious because I was like, there seems to be more going on. And the difference was that with the job, when I was 30, I didn't like the job. When I was unemployed, I didn't like being unemployed. But the third time, I liked my job. I liked what I was doing. I was like, okay, so it's not that. And then I was like Googling some random stuff. And eventually I come across this video. And there was a guy who explained burnout as the following. He said, burnout is when you put in a lot of work over and over again, but there are almost no results. And that makes you feel like you have no agency, like you have no control, no influence, because no matter the input, nothing's happening. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, now I get it. That makes so much sense. Because when I had my first burnout, I was working as a social worker, and I was trying to help people get their life back on tracks. But no matter how much energy I put into them, it didn't work. The best I could do was maintain their quality of life as much as possible. Then when I was looking for work in Finland, the second time I burned up, it was similar in the sense that I was, sending out resumes, I was rewriting resumes, I was networking, I was meeting people, but I didn't get any accomplishments in interviews. Even the opposite, companies or hiring managers would simply not even reply.
Oh.
So that created this lack of agency, this like, hey, I have all this energy, all this potential, I'm doing all of this work and it's not working. And I'm really happy with this definition because that makes me understand at least that the problem wasn't my lack of trying. Because in all three cases, I really, really did try. Now, we could have a whole different conversation whether what I did were the smartest things. Did I put the energy in the right spot? Actually, but that's really relevant because this now makes me realize that in all those three places, I wish that I would have known this definition because I believe now that I would earlier on try and change the course, try to have just, or maybe even just try something different, if that makes any sense.
It does. And that kind of, it just makes me think about my own burnout, because kind of I can tell that I was feeling a bit the feelings that you are feeling, maybe. So that whatever you did, it kind of didn't help with whatever you tried to achieve. And then I think in my case there was also kind of a lot of history, a lot of baggage that also influenced that I got the burnout.
What do you mean by baggage?
So kind of that it wasn't about the job that I had at that point. So maybe at the job that I was in, there was areas that kind of I wasn't taken seriously.
Do you have an example?
So, for example, I was working in a consultancy, and in our client's premises there was a really difficult challenge with the indoor air. And I was also acting in addition to my work role, I was acting as this employee representative of the company. So when I got a lot of feedback of that people were having different kinds of symptoms, and I was also having symptoms, I couldn't really. Maybe it's actually the same thing that you had, because now I'm trying to say, when I'm thinking, I'm like understanding that I couldn't have the agency to change the thing, because everything was like this kind of, what do you call that when you can't like stick to anyone? It was like this slippery feeling all the time when you try to influence on things and to influence on
what
people,
comes
and
to
there was
mind,
this wall
right?
always.
Yeah, what comes to mind is that, so, you know, trying things can be in a way my problem, meaning that I try something over and over, it doesn't work. So
Yeah.
let's say, for instance, that I'm sending out, you know, 100 resumes, it's not
Yeah.
working. Well, that's me doing that and hitting the wall. But on the other hand, if I have a problem at work, no, let's make it a positive thing. I have a solution at work, and I go to management and I go like, hey, here's the solution. And they're like, oh yeah, yeah, great, great, but another time. You're like, huh, but I put energy in this. And then you go like, oh, you know what, I'm going to make a presentation for the next meeting. And you know, you spend an hour, 2 hours on this presentation, you make it look nice. Maybe you get feedback from colleagues and they're like, hey, this is great, this will actually help us. And you go again to management and they're like, oh yeah, yeah, really good, really good. And then nothing happens. Again, you're putting in this energy and it just kind of like, you're like, oh, what? Like, because I feel really strongly that it is in our best interest to use our energy to move myself and the company and the people forward. And when that's blocked, you're blocking me. You're blocking my personality. You're like, in a way, you're telling me we don't care, or it's not interesting, or anything like that.
Yeah.
And if that happens consistently, then eventually I'll stop doing anything. Because why make an effort? Why make an effort? And then, you know, of course, now we have a problem because then management might notice and it's like, oh, you know, Bob isn't doing anything.
Yeah.
And then maybe you get reprimanded for that or punished even. But it wasn't your thing in the start. You were really motivated. You were trying to do something extra, but you weren't helped at all, right? So
Yeah.
the agency gets taken away.
Yeah, I feel that. And then additionally, when I'm pondering my own history, there can be a situation where it's like said that, okay, bring in ideas and
Exactly,
like we want to
exactly.
grow and we want to
Exactly.
develop. We're a people-oriented company.
Yes.
And then when you bring in that kind of ideas that
Exactly.
would support in that, then still the answer is no. And that's what kind of, I think that one of the main things that has brought me to burnout has been the inconsistency of people.
Yeah, and then the scary, at least one of the current conclusions that I have is not per se an easy one for anybody, but let's say management is like that. They're like, you know, oh, come with us, come to us with your ideas, but you're blocked all along the way, and eventually you become kind of, you know, apathic because of it. You're only doing what you have to do. I also now see that as a reason, and well, maybe you have to move on because you cannot grow there. There's nowhere to go. But then moving on, of course, creates a whole different amount of challenges because now you have to find another job and the thing, and then you have to start sending resumes, or you have to, or I don't know, start talking with another department or other customer or whatever the challenge is.
Yeah.
But what I also see is this. I mean, this is part of a much larger discussion, but one of the reasons why I find myself sometimes in these positions, where in a position where I feel powerless, is because I actually didn't really want to be there to begin with, because I had never really answered the question, what do I want to do and why do I do it, right? So this can also be this like learning this moment where you start asking the question, wait a minute, what do I actually want? So if I want to be able to create ideas in a company, and then what is it really that I want to do? And then I believe that from that, it's more likely to find a place, a community, a company, an ecosystem where you can do that. And then you're less likely to find yourself in a position where you're going to burn out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that happening. But I can also tell my own example that what happened to me after the burnout was that then at some point when the inconsistencies kind of continued in other companies as well, I figured out like, okay, I need to be self-employed. I want to be an entrepreneur. I became that. Then I, at the end, understood that I actually want to work with people. That I don't want to work like
Right,
by
exactly,
myself.
exactly.
But why I did that was that I thought that I can't work with anybody else ever again
Right.
because of these
Right.
disappointments. And as I said, like, okay, that it's the inconsistency of the people that made me do it. But how I
Right.
understand it now is that when I'm in a better place myself and I have this sense of my own values, the other things that kind of that it's clear for me what makes my life worth living and why do I want to do the job that I do, and what are my best qualities, how can I use that in that work in that kind of way that it doesn't take like too much of my energy, that a lot of my natural capabilities are
Okay,
in work.
so this is why I like the definition so much that I got from that video. Because if I'm able to look back at where I lost my agency, then I also learn what is important to me and what
Yes.
I'm missing. And then you can use that, and either you can go to your management and ask for that, or you can change and find it.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly.